I need to show you how Dr. Mmusi Maimane has jumped on the national dialogue train, and he says, you all going on about how immoral the ANC is. And yes, I mean, they may be, but what about your moral fiber?
Our nation is on trial when we think about the national dialogue. That's why it's important, as I'm appealing again to all the foundations, that whilst they may have challenges with the process, I want to invite them into the process. They must come back.
A plea to those who have backtracked on their support for the national dialogue. Build One South Africa leader Dr. Mmusi Maimane says 31 years into democracy, a reflection on the country's path to prosperity has never been needed more than now.
The question on the table always is, who is on trial? Others have arrived at a national dialogue and said that the government is on trial. And yes, the government has demonstrated massive governance failures, not only on the economy, safety of citizens, and many others. But at the same time as all of that, I do think the moral fabric of our society is also on trial.
The price tag of the national dialogue has generated keen interest. According to Maimane, the country will cough up close to R500 million. He quoted the figure from his communication with Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana.
Coming out of the contingency reserve fund, South Africa will spend an estimated 485 million rand to be spent on the national dialogue.
So there you go. So in this video, I'm just going to take you through an analysis of what Dr. Maimane is up to and show you the good of it, the bad of it, and the ugly of it, so that we see clearly, because we're moving together to a destination called South African prosperity. It may not look obvious to everyone, but we believe it, don't we? So press like, let's go on. So Dr. Mmusi Maimane, for those who don't know, check this video here, sent out a letter to Treasury to say, I need to know how you're spending money on the national dialogue. But then put out a news release and he said, I'm announcing everything about the GNU and developments. Then started singing the praises of the national dialogue. So let's begin with the good. What is good about this is that Mr. Maimane is playing politics. You just saw him now. He's out now reading the response to his letter about finances in front of a BOSA banner. So he's borrowing authority from Parliament as chair of the Appropriations Committee, and that gives him the right to ask how the money is being spent on our behalf, to now begin campaigning. And he's now saying this is the response, this is how much is going to be used. So as a politician, he's playing the if you can't beat them, join them game. If Ramaphosa is going to ride the national dialogue for the ANC, I'm going to ride the national dialogue for BOSA, because 2026 is coming. He makes the most amazing statement. He says everybody should come to the national dialogue. He says, Thabo Mbeki, come back. FW de Klerk, come back. Steve Biko, come back. OR Tambo, come back. Let's be mature. Let's do this for South Africa. He finds a gap in positioning because Ramaphosa is already dialogue, unity, nation building. So he finds a gap and he says, I'm going to be the Bishop Tutu of South Africa by standing for morality. So then he says, I know you think this is just about governance and corruption and all of that, but you know what else is on trial? How is your moral fiber? So he's positioning himself as a moral authority and playing the Ramaphosa game to ride the national dialogue. Now, as a politician, If he had just got the letter, well, it was going to go in the minutes in Parliament. And so he wrote the letter to Treasury, but then released the statement to say, I've written the letter, and went on a media tour. And then now he's come back to say, they have answered me, but then once again calls a press briefing to do this. So for BOSA, good. You've got some attention, and politicians do need to get attention. And the positioning himself above the childish Thabo Mbeki, above the childish DA, above the childish EFF, above the childish MK, above the, all of these are in, right? Above the childish Freedom Front. And he's the guy who raises moral fiber. We not just opening a case against the ANC for corruption at this national dialogue, we also opening a case against you, South Africa. So it can backfire big time, but then if it works, it works. That's the advantage of starting from a low base. There's not much to lose. There's only something to gain. And why does he position himself above everybody? Well,
a president with me is pretty good at this rebuttal thing on Twitter. This man is the most presidential as far as looks, poise, and even deliverance is concerned. I'm talking about BOSA President, Mr. Mmusi Maimane. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
It's great having you. The G2G podcast is a very hard talk, deep. Are you ready?
Good to go, man.
Good to go.
I think anyways, I think it's important for political leadership to always be held accountable. And I think being sweetheart to politicians not only cheapens the sport, but it ultimately means that citizens are not best served.
Well, on that note, being a blackface for a white party, now that you're no longer there, do you feel free?
I think the statement itself has its own weaknesses. I certainly am one who believes in a South Africa that works for all. I'm certainly one, when I joined the DA, didn't join to become the blackface for whites. I joined because I think black people and white people can work together to be able to achieve a transformative agenda and an inclusive agenda.
This Galston guy is naughty. His first question is just so naughty, but he takes it in his strides and he says inclusive and transformation. But listen again, because he started off by saying the most presidential.
Be there for the youths, because the youths, you're young enough to still talk to the youth. Help them with unemployment, and make sure you're one of those presidents, if you ever come out, to be the president who represents this country well. Can you do that, boys?
I'm going to work my life to try and get that right. But
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's what this is about. Positioning himself as presidential. Is it a stretch? Coming from a 0.4% base? I think so. But Ramaphosa hopes it'll work for him that way. Well, Maimane seems to feel that the same strategy, he can use the national dialogue to play the same game. So that's the good. Good for you. Go for it. You're a politician. You're allowed to be a politician. So let's go to the bad. Ah, wah, wah, wah. Ah, wah, wah, wah. What's the bad?
The commitment from the Minister of Finance says we're going to use some of the money that was allocated to NEDLAC, and some of it will go to the first tranche has already been paid. Equally so that local governments and municipalities will make their contributions in kind, and they will pursue finding out where other issues, where other in-kind donations can come from in the private sector. We, as Build One South Africa, will be there to make sure that each and every rand and every cent is spent correctly. Where there have been people who have committed to say that they will not be receiving money for being part of the national dialogue, we're going to ensure that is. We want to ensure that all of these imbizos, because the majority of the fund isn't to conventions. The majority of the fund will go to the multiple events that they've put in communities. And to be more specific, these events, 13,760 community dialogues to be specific, can never be used for political purposes. Can't say we're having a national dialogue imbizo in this community and therefore we will invite people that we so choose to mobilize people we so choose. We have to depoliticize the process. We have to achieve a clear roadmap, and we have to ensure that this moment is not squandered. Because if it is squandered, here's the risk. Tomorrow, you've already seen that there are many different organizations that feel comfortable going to the United States to tell the South Africa they want to see, tell their version of the story. You continue along that trajectory, it won't just be tariffs in the US or false narrative about South Africa. You will incentivize disinvestment into South Africa. I genuinely want to see a dialogue that yields a sense upon which it comes up with a clear roadmap. It has a baseline discussion, and that all of us at the end of it can say, indeed, this process was ours, not this process was for that political party. It is in this light that Build One South Africa will be tabling a plan for prosperity. Because you only hold a national dialogue in the midst or post a crisis. Rwanda confronted profound genocide and had to come together and say, where does it go? Singapore created a national consensus, which is audited every 5 years. Scandinavian countries came together around a number of values. European countries, Germany more specific, came up with a plan post the World War. South Africa is facing its own crisis in that more young people cannot find work. Therefore, the question must be, how do we ensure that the 55% of South Africans who are living below the upper poverty line find themselves into the middle class? This plan for prosperity will be tabled in the early parts of September. We want that to be the baseline upon which we can have a discussion about the economy. Because, to quote former President Clinton, it is about the economy. That's it. We debate many things, but it is about where South Africans find their livelihoods. So as it pertains to the national dialogue, we are keeping a close eye on this issue. This plan will be tabled, and then once we have tabled it, we will go and workshop it with the various sectors. I want to engage business in South Africa to say, how do we turn our economy around? We want to engage civil society, communities, to say, come on board, let's talk about how do we make sure South Africa is a wealthy country that includes all of us as citizens.
Okay, so let's go to the bad. Almost everything he's saying here is just political framing of things. Number one, he says national dialogue is important. No politics. But I'm gonna knock the DA and the Freedom Front. Those are the two who went overseas as spreading misinformation, disinformation. Number two, he only invites back the ANC aligned people. So he is playing politics. Rwanda had a national dialogue. Number two, he says Germany had a national dialogue of some kind. But then he says Singapore has a national dialogue equivalent. Not true. What Singapore has, if it's called The Conversation, I believe it's called, it is an institution with a The Conversation Act, if we compare to what's happening here. We do not have a National Dialogue Act. This is a parallel theater. This is a sideshow, executive-led sideshow that's costing too much and going too broad for an executive engagement with people. So every example that he brings up does not apply, and he knows this, but he's playing politics to just get some screen time. He's not telling us what Treasury answered in our house, in Parliament. He's announcing our monies in the streets for political point scoring. However, politicians are politicians, so I'm not sure this is that serious. So let's go to the ugly. Parliament, according to our constitution, is the forum for a national dialogue. Every example he has used to justify the national dialogue were in positions where those people had no parliament. Rwanda, there was literally no government. People were chopping limbs off people. It was a mess. It was about getting to start something. Germany, the example he uses was literally after World War II. It was a dialogue to lead to where a parliament is set up so that no dictator can rise again who can use executive-led formations to lead a country. So now power was brought and it led to a setting up of parliament. South Africa has problems, but one of them is not that we don't even have a parliament. So that is a false equivalency. And the ugly of it is that he is undermining Parliament's standing for the sake of political point scoring. In the rest of the video, he goes on to talk about how he's going to be engaging business. Wait, I don't understand. You're saying you're joining the national dialogue, then you say you're releasing a document, and then you say you are going to have another dialogue with business on the side and different organizations. We're not children. We can see through this. And at the end of this time, he then goes to talk about 2026, how much he loves Johannesburg and how much he wants to make Johannesburg work. I don't mind that part because politicians got a politic. He's doing it. If you can't beat them, join them. Since Ramaphosa is going to be riding this wave, I'm going to ride this wave. I'll bring sanity here because everyone is fighting. Calm down, Thabo. I'm here. Calm down. Let's just talk. It's for the sake of our nation. And not only just the economy and corruption. But you know what, South Africa? You need to check yourself before you wreck yourself morally. Your moral fiber is on display. And because I like Mmusi Maimane, I'm not going to go to a biblical reaction, but I'm going to remind you, no man can serve two masters. Otherwise, you'll love the one and hate the other, or you'll despise the one and put down the other. You cannot serve God and Karl Marx. So let me hear your thoughts below. Those are my thoughts. What do you think of these moves that Honorable Dr. Maimane is pulling off? Let's make history together. Cheers.